Welcome to Tipping Spears with Hannah Becker. Today's conversation promises to be an insightful one with a remarkable guest. Whether you're joining us for the first time or you're a regular listener, we're so glad you're here. Our goal is to bring you closer to the innovative leaders and thinkers shaping our future. And today, we're thrilled to welcome Ally Armeson. Ally is as Executive Director of FightCybercrime, where she leads initiatives aimed at helping individuals and communities to recognize, report, and recover from the growing threat of fraud and crime. Ally leads the organization's Military and Veteran Initiative, where she works to provide cybersecurity awareness and resources to service members, veterans, and their families who are often targeted by online scammers. Through educational outreach and training, she helps those communities safeguard their futures in a digital world. Additionally, she oversees the Romance Scam Recovery Group, a free support group for victims of romance fraud who often experience loss, shame, and isolation once the crime ends. The Romance Scam Recovery Group helps those who have been harmed by cyber criminals find their way to healing and resilience and seeks to prevent program participants from being affected by scams in the future. Ally's commitment to helping others is rooted in her 10 years of service in the United States Army. During her service, she implemented programs that delivered humanitarian assistance to vulnerable communities. These efforts provided immediate relief, but also the groundwork for long-term recovery, building relationships, improving infrastructure, and supporting good governance to protect communities from exploitation by bad actors. Ally's experience with helping those who have been taken advantage of by criminals has made her passionate about victim services. She hopes to one day ensure that no cybercrime victim is left to recover alone. Welcome to Tipping Spears, Ally.
Thank you so much. So happy to be here, Hannah.
Yeah, well, we can just kind of dive in. Can you tell us
Yeah.
where your story begins?
Yeah, sure. So, really boring, the most boring way possible, right? I grew up in an average town in an average way. I had average academics and athletic abilities. So, when it came time to go to college, I kind of I just wanted to get the hell out of Pennsylvania and I had to figure out how to get there, right? So, I wasn't going to get an academic athletic scholarship. My dad had served in the army and he said, "Why don't you consider ROTC?" And I had always been interested in serving. I think in my 6th grade yearbook, I say something like, "I want to be in the army," or "I want to be a military officer," something like that. So when it came time to really decide, do I want to do that or not, it was a fairly easy decision. So I joined ROTC. It would help me pay for college. I would have a job right out of college. I was already drawn to service, to helping, the chance to do something bigger than myself. This is all pre 9/11, by the way. I think I signed my contract, and I think 4 weeks later, 9/11 happened. And
Oh,
that
wow.
certainly, yeah, whoop, surprise, right? But I mean, obviously, when you join the military, you should probably be pretty ready and prepared for that
Mhm.
possibility. But that made the dangers and the responsibilities more poignant, right? But it didn't change. It didn't change my mind. Once I decided to serve, I was in. So
That's fascinating. The ROTC program is such an awesome kind of launching pad
yeah,
for so
it really
many
is.
things.
hmm It really,
So
really is.
can you tell us a little bit more about what you did in the Army?
Yeah, so I did a I did a bunch of things. I had kind of a meandering career. I started with air defense and that was great and that was fine, but I was like, I don't think this is it, right? And I got an email one day that said, join civil affairs, to kind of
Mm.
try and work with special forces. And I'm like, that sounds pretty cool. So I put in my application and got accepted into that program, did the branch transfer, and that's where I did the humanitarian assistance,
Mhm.
the projects and the programs. I got to one, not only help people um in very different locations. I mean, I went to Afghanistan, I went to
Mhm.
South America, Central America, very different but similar places, right? Humans are so fascinating. We're so different but the same, right? The
Yeah.
vulnerabilities are the same. The bad guys take
Mhm.
advantage of the same vulnerabilities. It can look a little different on the outside. So
Mhm.
it was just a really fascinating and fulfilling branch of service for me and when I joined civil affairs. And so when it came time for me to to leave the Army, I was like, I want more of that, right? I sort of want more
Mhm.
of the helping and the assisting the vulnerable. And so that launched my current career.
Yeah. So can you tell us kind of what first sparked your interest in cyber? Is that something you were exposed to in uniform, or is that kind of a new chapter?
No. I completely fell into this by accident, Hannah. I knew I wanted to do a job where I helped people, right?
Hmm.
I was actually job hunting during COVID, which was a crazy time as well. Whole other story about that could be another podcast. Have me on again and talk to me about trying to find a job after leaving military service, after currently being a military spouse and having that
Hmm.
mommy gap, right? I had those
Hmm.
mommy gap years where I hadn't been working, but I raised 2 kids, we moved 3 times and I got an MBA, right? But as soon as you start interviewing, people are like, "Well, where's the job?" though, right?
Yeah.
So very difficult. So I went in simple. Again, I want to help
Hmm.
people. And if I could maybe help the military community while I'm at it, extra bonus and make some money, right? We needed some money. So those are
Yeah.
kind of my three main areas. And I actually contacted Hiring Our Heroes. I don't know if you know
Hmm.
about that
Hmm.
organization. Great organization that
Hmm.
helps veterans and spouses find employment, connect with companies. So they accepted me into their military spouse fellowship program, and Cybercrime Support Network found me and offered me a job helping the military community fight back against scams. So a little bit of timing there, right? A little bit of good fortune. And again, once I came on board, though, we all have the basics, right? I did my cyber
Hmm.
awareness challenge while I was
Hmm.
serving, but I just threw myself into learning as much as I could. We have some great professionals at our company at Fight
Hmm.
Cybercrime, great members on the board, staff
Hmm.
who brought me up to speed. And then
Hmm.
I just was like reading and looking at the news and signing up for webinar, right? Signing up for anything and everything just to get all that I could, right? And I found out that I really loved the emotional human behavior side to
Hmm.
cybercrime. Yes, the tech piece is so crucial. It's so fascinating. I wish I would have learned more about it. I wish I could go back 20 years and be like, Allie, learn about all this stuff now. You'll be a billionaire, a gajillionaire, right? But the reality is, most of these bad guys are hacking our hearts and our brains, right?
Hmm.
In order to get our information. They're just using tech to scale it or become more efficient, faster at it. At the end of the day, if technology blew up tomorrow, romance fraud would still take place. It would just take place at the local level. And, imposter scams have been happening since the beginning of time. So I think that's a really important detail that sometimes gets missed.
Yeah, no, that's a great explanation of kind of the human element that folks just don't think about when it
Yeah.
comes to tech. And I love hacking our hearts and our brains because that's really just spot on.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
So many people think, if they don't have a computer science degree at 22, then, a tech career is off the table for them. And that's one thing I just kind of loved about your career journey is that, you not only were you able to kind of see the opportunities, get connected with opportunities in technology, but also how you brought, your passion for service, your insights with people who are being targeted by bad guys from, Afghanistan to here into this work. So it's so fascinating. I feel like you kind of see the missing pieces, the full picture here of your journey, and it's very inspiring.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, again, like it all comes back to humans. You
Mhm.
said it earlier when we were chatting, right? As long as there are humans here, we got to take them into the equation, right? It's
Yeah.
not just computers talking to computers. It's
Yeah.
humans interacting using the
Yeah.
technology. So we can't ignore that. We can't ignore
Yeah.
it.
Which is often the hardest thing to do in tech. I feel like, I mean, now even, we have AI, machine learning can code for us, all of this, but that person
Yeah.
context, it requires a human with insights into how all that works. It can't just be like,
Yeah.
chat GPT'd on anything.
Exactly. And you'll hear from, even tech experts,
Yeah.
using AI, amazing, but garbage in, garbage out,
Yep.
right? So if you don't know what you're talking about, if you put it in wrong, if you're,
Yeah.
mistakes, right, you're going to get garbage out. So
Yeah.
humans are still very much in a part
Yeah.
of it.
So can you tell us a little bit more about your current role at Fight Cybercrime, and then kind of specifically, about supporting, the military veteran community members that may be, victims to these crimes?
Yeah. So I have two major functions. The romance scam recovery group and then the military veteran program. And so I'll just take those kind of one at a time. So the romance scam recovery group is a free peer support program that helps victims of romance fraud and crypto investment fraud, also known as pig butchering. And we know that that's exploding. If you looked at the FTC report, that's just skyrocketing. So that's where people think, they're contacted either by a potential love interest or maybe even just an investor or a mentor who says, "Hey, I can get you great returns. Invest in crypto. Go to this website." The person creates their own password on this website, makes their own investments. But what's really happening is they're just putting their money into a crypto wallet and it's
Mhm.
gone forever. Right. So we help both the romance fraud victims and victims of that crime. So, and again, our goal is to make sure that no victim has to navigate the aftermath alone. People like to hear about the juicy details of the romance
Mhm.
fraud or the scam story. But then once they hear that, they're like, all right, done, moving on. I don't care, right? They'll just get a job, they'll figure it out, they'll be fine. And the reality is, the scam is kind of the happy part with regard to those two scams, right? A romance fraud,
Yeah.
you're in love, you're potentially met
Yeah.
your soulmate, right? You're just on cloud nine. And yes, you may be sending money, but you're sending money to your future partner, right? You're sending money
Mhm.
to someone you care deeply for. With the crypto investment fraud, again, even if it's not a romantic scam, you're earning returns. You're hopeful that you can pay back your
Mhm.
debt. You're
Mhm.
hopeful you can retire. You're hopeful you can leave your children money when you're
Mhm.
gone, right? So you're just like, yes, this is great. This is wonderful. It's when the scam ends where like the poop hits the fan, right?
Yeah.
Because I mean, now you're in financial turmoil. We have people who call us from homeless shelters, their cars, they're suicidal because their world has been turned upside down. They can't afford food. They're purchasing dog food to eat. So, like, I mean, devastating. There's tax repercussions, social security repercussions if you're a certain age, Medicare repercussions if you're a certain age, legal repercussions if you are an unwitting money mule, right? Like the hits just keep coming. We say this is the crime or these are the crimes that just keep stealing. So that's the stuff we don't talk about or hear about in the media. We hear about the scam and move on. And so we just really, and I will be the first to say my organization does not do enough. I wish we could do a billion trillion more things, right? I wish we could piece their lives back together. But the fact is there's just no justice, right? They can
Mhm.
file a report, but if their money doesn't meet a certain threshold, a case won't
Mhm.
be opened. It's jurisdiction issues because the bad guys
Mhm.
are in other countries for the most
Mhm.
part, right? And countries that don't necessarily play nice with America. So even if you
Mhm.
can trace the bad guy, you can't get to him. And even if you can trace, right, we can trace crypto, we have that ability, but you can't pull it back. You can't claw it back. So it's just like disappointment after disappointment. And so we just do our best to walk them through the mental health piece, the legal piece,
Mhm.
the tax piece, right? All of these things. And the mental health piece, I think, is just the biggest thing we can do right now and what we're still trying to help them with. And hopefully one day we can do more. And then what we do is we take all we learn from the victims and we try and make it into prevention material for the general public, right? Hey, here's what we're learning. Here's what victims are telling us. A
Mhm.
lot of our participants want to share their story because they're like, I do not want this to happen to another person. And so they will share their story with others to help bring awareness, to help show how the timeline of the
Mhm.
fraud, right? And so that's where we kind of fit in the focus prevention piece. And then with the military and veteran program, we don't have a peer support program or anything specific
Mhm.
like that. But what we do try to accomplish is bringing awareness to fraud, scam, cybercrime that affect the military and veteran community. So, how to avoid scams during PCS season, right? When you're
Mhm.
busy and you're stressed and you're just like, right? You're like closing
Mhm.
accounts, opening accounts, going to shady gas stations, right? You're doing all these things on your PCSing and you're just like trying to get there. And
Mhm.
I mean, my credit card number has been stolen
Oh,
almost every PCS, right? Because I had to stop someplace shady and just was in a
mhm,
hurry and didn't think
mhm,
twice, right? So, and
mhm.
I'm in the biz, right? And this happens to me. So, military spouses and job scams. How
Yeah,
desperate can we be sometimes to find a
yeah,
job because the job market is tough? And when you have a
yeah,
new job every 2 to 3 years, your
yeah.
resume looks schizophrenic, right?
It
You look like a
does.
crazy person. And so you're just like, oh my gosh, just hire me, right? And the bad guys are
Mm,
taking advantage of that. Keeping
mm,
military kids safe. Think of how many times military kids move and schools get
mm,
data breaches,
mhm,
hospitals get data breaches. Are you going to necessarily know if 3 schools ago your kid's info got breached? I
mm.
don't know, right? Are you paying attention to that? So that's how we try and help the military and veteran community here. So those are our two flagship programs at Fight Cybercrime.
Yeah. Well, no, that sounds expansive and incredibly kind of impactful. As you're talking, I was not aware. I never really thought through um the kind of broad impacts or effects of this. I'm just thinking, you know, my credit card also stolen, during a
Yeah.
PCS. It's like we just
Yeah.
stop, stop it, discontinue the card, and it's like, okay, done. And as you were talking, especially with kind of the romance scams, and really even I hadn't even thought about the military spouse employment, but you're just spot on because I also got scammed that way. I was so desperate, which is crazy to me because I was a literal professor of computer science applying like we were moving to the
Yeah.
middle of nowhere
Yeah,
applying for
yeah,
jobs, and I thought something was legitimate and it wasn't, and it is just that desperation. But as you were talking, kind
yeah,
of I'm thinking, kind of grief, anger, shame, and I mean mass embarrassment is
yeah,
just and I had never thought about the fallout from that.
yeah,
But it's and I mean there's just not support there to get justice in a realistic way, but also just not a lot of
yeah.
support or even discussion on this.
Yeah, right, because what do we hear from the public? And before I go on, I wanna tell you, I was affected by job scam too, so we could start a
Okay.
club. We could start a
Okay.
little military spouse job scam club.
Yeah.
But again, right, you're just like, "I need a flipping job," right? "I
That
need a
is
flipping job."
it. That is
Yeah.
all that is going on.
Yeah, and you're smart and you know, right? And that's the thing I think that's key. Like it's smarts, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
it's emotions, right? It's
Yeah.
your frame of mind. Are you stressed out? Are you freaking out?
Mhm,
Right? It's
mhm.
all that stuff. So we'll start a club. We'll talk about that after this. So but back to what we hear in the public, right? You can't fix stupid, right?
Yeah.
Or people are so dumb or they deserve this. So is
Yeah.
it any wonder that cybercrime is severely underreported, right? Because we
I don't know.
shame
Yeah.
victims. We
That's
we hold
true.
them accountable. What other crime, right, do we hold the victim responsible? You gave
Yeah.
your money away.
Yeah.
You let them take it, right? And
Mhm.
it was stolen. A criminal came into
Mhm.
your life, lied to you, emotionally manipulated you, and stole your money. And
Mhm.
that's the phrasing and the terminology we need to start using more and more.
Yeah. That's a great point. You just kind of shined a light on the aspect that I've even having been affected, I hadn't really thought through, the impacts, but it's so there.
Yeah.
So, was there a particular person or event that kind of served as a catalyst for your career?
Um, so I as far as my civilian career, my
Mhm.
military career, definitely my dad. I
Mhm.
I watched him during his 20 plus years of service and I used to help him tie his army boots,
Aw.
right? And all that stuff that you see in the movies, I was doing that. And so he certainly was a catalyst for my military career. And then flash, 10 years into my military career, the birth of my daughter, right? I don't
Yeah.
know if you've heard children change things, right? But I took a moment to kind of be like, what am I doing? Right? What do I want? What do I want the next
Mhm.
10 years to be? And although the military was amazing and gave me so much and so wonderful, the reality was I was going to be away from my family quite often. And was I going to make that sacrifice? And at the end of the day, I was like, I love my service. I love the
Mhm.
military. Um, but I think it's time for a change. And so again, so grateful for too the self-awareness the Army gave me. They gave me some great candid feedback and made me into a better person. And I met some real heroes. I
Mhm.
was not a hero. My career very mediocre, but I met some great heroes and some people who were, I mean, just embodied awesomeness, right? As like, not to
Yeah.
like make it sound silly, but just you look at them and you're like, wow, you are somebody in something, and
Yeah.
so I'm so forever grateful. But it was time for me to figure out what to do next. And again, it was, I want to help people, and I want that to be the main thing, right? I don't want it
Mhm.
to be well, I helped people after I did XYZ. I
Yeah.
want it to be when I go to sleep at night and put my head on the pillow, I know that I helped people, and I
Mhm.
absolutely have that in this job. When I go to sleep at night, I know my team and I have helped people, and that feels good. And I like that. So
That's so inspiring.
there you go. Podcast
Yeah,
over. It's done. We nailed
I
it.
know. There are not a lot of folks that can say that with their
Yeah.
careers.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I
Yeah.
won't be a millionaire anytime soon, so keep that in mind.
We'll
But
work on that next.
we'll work on that. We'll work on that next. That'll come later.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So I know you kind of mentioned kind of the journey in your career, and I know every journey, has its hurdles. So can you tell us about kind of some of the biggest obstacles you faced, and then like kind of what you did or what you find useful in overcoming them?
Yeah, and we definitely touched on it. I
Mm.
my finding my first civilian job, going into a civilian career and completely pivoting, right? I didn't go to a
Yeah.
GovCon,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
yeah, right. I wanted to completely pivot, the mommy gap, all that stuff we talked
Mm.
about already. I think I really had a hard time presenting myself because I made
Mhm.
kind of no sense, right? Like my resume screamed like Army person put me in operations, right? Like,
Yeah.
right. But
Yeah.
when I interviewed, I was like, I want to help people, right? So like, I think companies are like, what? You don't make any sense, right? We want to put you
Yeah.
in a manufacturing plant on the line to supervise, but then you're like this bubbly thing, right? So like, I think it took a long time for me to figure out how to make the two make sense, right? And say,
Yeah.
this is what I did, and this is why I'm good at this, and this, and what I can do. I also had no network whatsoever, Hannah. Like no network that could help me, right? Again, I had like
Right.
an army network, I had a military
Yeah.
network, but no network to get my foot in the door. It's so
Yeah.
hard to get your foot in the door. And
Mhm.
so, and man, I hated networking. Oh my gosh, right? It felt so like, right. It felt so icky.
Mhm.
Um, and I have a better relationship with it now. I needed some help. I had a very gracious and kind executive coach. Her name is Megan Parker. Shout out to Megan Parker. But she helped me a lot. She was actually the one that pointed out my resume versus personality discrepancy. And then she kind of talked to me about networking and was like, it's not transactional. You're
Mhm.
networking to just have a conversation, right? You're not
Mhm.
networking to get the job. You're there
Yeah.
to have a conversation and see where you are, where they are, if you can help them. And that really helped me, right? Hey, see if you
Yeah.
can help them, right? See if there's something or you can connect them with. It doesn't have to be this transactional thing or this numbers game, right? Like I need
Mhm.
5,000 connections. Like
Yeah.
that's not going to help you. 5,000 connections if they're like not worthless. No one is worthless, but you know what I'm saying? If it's
Yeah.
just these
Yeah.
cold unpersonal connections, it's not going to do
Mhm.
anything for you. If you have 100 connections, but they're meaningful,
Mhm.
that's going to do way more for you. You need a network with meaning, not a network that has high numbers. And that I think was my second biggest hurdle is building that network. And it took forever, but we're getting
Mhm.
there. We're getting there, Hannah.
Well, as you were kind of speaking, I was thinking kind of the resume and the personality and feeling, initially like those clashed. And I felt that way kind of in kind of male dominated industries where it's like, oh, I have to, oh, like one of my first jobs, they're like, your hair's too long. You've got to put it all the way back. All the men are wearing suits of this color. Don't show up in a skirt, like all the things. I internalized, like, I have to take this person that's like multidimensional and this big and like shrink her so down into
Yeah.
this like very narrow criteria, which makes me miserable. I can't do it because
Yeah.
it's not just ones and zeros with me with tech. It's the people. It's the how
Yeah.
does this change lives? How does this hurt folks? What are we,
Yeah.
what are we doing? And it was interesting because you're talking, I just thought it was neat how you know figured out kind of how to present kind of your whole whole person there as a unique individual, and kind of use the insights from operations, but also bubbly, seeing the multicolored world we actually live in, not just the two-dimensional, and kind of marry those two together and kind of like channel that into your leadership strategy and
Yeah.
approach. And it's just something that's just not it's just not talked about. It's more of like, let's compress you into this tiny little box, and you just stuff it until you just can't handle it anymore.
Yeah, you create a little hate diamond. Yeah,
Yes.
little pressure hate diamond. And it's so true, Hannah, right? I remember being like told feedback same day within 2 hours, right? I had done this was when I was still in the military. I
Mhm.
was doing an exercise, and in the same 2-hour period I was told I wasn't genuine, I was too serious. And then
Yeah.
another evaluator said I smiled too much and I
Okay.
was too bubbly and I needed to be more serious. And I was like, what is happening? Like, I didn't know what to do with my hands, right? I
Yeah.
was so confused. And so then, like, what do you do with that feedback? And then, you try, just like you said, to put yourself in
Mhm.
a compartment, right? And then you are not genuine because you
Yeah.
are being someone that's completely not yourself. Now,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong. No one needs to see 100% of Ally. That's a
Right.
lot, right? That's a lot. You don't need 100%, but like you still need a genuine, like, flavor, right? You need a
Yeah.
misting of what
Yeah.
I really am. And so I think it is really important. And it's not just like military feedback. Like, when
Right.
you do get feedback, critically look at it and be like,
Mhm.
is that really good feedback? Right? Is that true? And like, am I going to
Yeah.
take that? Can I learn from that? Or is that just like not worth my time? Right? Because nobody
Yeah.
needs a hate diamond. We got enough of those hate diamonds within us. You don't need another one, girl. Just like figure out what's worthwhile, what can make you better, and then release the rest. Right?
Yeah.
This
No,
is
that's
getting deep, Hannah. We're getting like in it. This is like a
it's
therapy session now.
it's
Ah.
funny. The real Ally will come out. No.
Yeah, I know. Nobody needs that. Nobody needs it.
That's funny. So, what new development around cyber are you most excited about?
I mean, it's hard not to say AI, right? I
Yeah.
hate to be so boring, but isn't it hard not to say AI? I
Oh, it's
mean,
continually impressive.
right? I mean, even just like messing around with my kids with
Mhm.
artwork, right? Or
Yeah.
creating a story on ChatGPT. I'm like, this
Yeah.
is so cool, right? And this is just all the superficial stuff that you can do with
Yeah.
AI. When we think of cybersecurity, again, that tech piece, like the massive amounts of data we can analyze
Mhm.
now and the patterns and potential
Mhm.
risks we can see more accurately than ever before. We can reduce, right, those false positives. We can flag those phishing attempts. We can better simulate social engineering attacks, right, and accelerate that response time. Like, that's so cool, right? And I'm not even a techie, and I'm like, that sounds amazing, right? So like, it's so cool to see the possibility, but then, it's that double-edged sword because we're also seeing bad guys use it. So
Yeah.
absolutely, we're seeing more of our participants say, "Well, I video chatted with, the
Yeah.
criminal and they looked like they said, or like they were supposed to look, right, in their photo. They sounded like they were
Mhm.
supposed to sound. Voice cloning, right? Like, oh
Mhm.
my gosh." So we are seeing, those celebrity scams be more convincing
Mhm.
because I mean, celebrities have so much video and voice out there that you can create such a convincing deep fake. Even when it's not romantic, right? If it's just you're a fan and you think, oh, I'm a celebrity and you want a laptop, right? It's even more convincing now because there's that deep fake in front of you. So AI is amazing and wonderful, and I'm so excited about it. But also the bad guys know that too, and they're using it, and that's just technology, right? I bet the first person who invented the wheel, everyone was like, "Great," and then another person used it to kill someone immediately, right? So, like, I think whenever we have technology, that's just how it's going to roll. It's
Yeah.
going to be used for good and used for bad. Just depends on who's wielding it.
Yeah. I've had like 3 friends who are technology professionals in the past month get a phone call that it's their kid's voice. And, and
Yep.
it's just, I mean, these are people who have, 20, 30, 40 years in technology. This is all they do. And that advanced technology, like you're describing, is so effective.
Yeah.
These is just so effective in kind of
Yeah.
the open the opportunities, but also the threats. And then how do we navigate that?
Yeah, and we all have kind of like those biases, right? Those
Right?
biases in our mind and
Hmm.
the truth bias. If you give me just enough, right, that I'm
On the
like,
right subject.
yeah,
Yeah.
right, like, okay, all right,
Yeah.
you sound legit. And once I make that decision that you are who you say you are, ooh, it's tough. You're in it, right? You're already emotionally
Mhm.
manipulated. And it's nobody's fault. It's our brains, right? That's just how our
Yeah.
brains are. And so it's so tough. It's so
Yeah.
tough. Yeah.
So specifically kind of with the military and veteran community, what are your kind of top, cyber concerns? Can you tell us like kind of what you're seeing, what's changed, if anything, recently, kind of what's on your radar with that?
Yeah. I think well, I'm going to bring it to the emotional behavior piece.
Mhm.
I mean, the military life can be lonely and
Yeah.
it can be stressful, and
Mhm.
you're away from your trusted network. And
Mhm.
so our reliance on technology saves us, right? We can find a house, we can find a job, we can find our kids' schools, we can do all these things, right? But also, oh no, now we're exposed to even more scams, right? Because we're on that platform, these platforms more. Not only just to get the everyday stuff we need to get done, but to connect with our families and friends, right?
Yeah.
To stay connected. That loneliness piece, not just the military and veteran community, but we have a loneliness epidemic. I mean,
Mhm.
we are more connected than ever, and yet we are more lonely than ever. So there's something happening there, right? There's something that yes, we are connecting, we are communicating, we are doing these wonderful things because of technology, but it's also causing increased loneliness, right? So are those connections actually meaningful? Are those connections actually helping us? And I think the answer is when we are really connecting to people we know already, we've
Mhm.
met them in person, we know them already, we have the relationship, technology helps. It grows the relationship, it makes it flourish. But when it's someone we don't know if they're real or not because we've never met them in person, there's
Mhm.
just a lot of room for crime, scam,
Mhm.
not who they say they are. And so that's not necessarily a new thing that I'm scared
Mhm.
of, but I think that's something that's gonna get worse as, again, the technology increases and just the fact that the military community moves so much, can be so lonely sometimes because of those moves, because of those deployments, because of those training, TDY going away and training for a few months. Um, I think that's gonna get even more complicated because of, again,
Mhm.
things like AI.
Mhm.
And then I think it's that age old, just because you're aware doesn't mean you care, right? We all
Mhm.
know passwords should be long and unique, right? And yet, what NordPass does that report every year on the
Mhm.
top like used passwords.
Mhm.
And in 2024, the top used password in America was secret. It was secret,
Oh
all
gosh.
lowercase. Yeah, it was all lowercase. Right. And then the classics are always there, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or like password all lowercase, right? If you ask anyone on the street, like, should your password be password? They would say no. And yet, that's the number 3 password we as Americans use, right? So, like, how can we get people to care about these tedious things about cyber hygiene, right? Brush your teeth, do your
Yeah.
cyber hygiene, change your passwords. It's just, we're busy, right? We're overloaded.
Mm.
And so these really important things, when everything's important, how do you choose what to do? And so we haven't
Yeah.
cracked that yet. If have you cracked it, Hannah? If you cracked it, let me know. But I mean, again, military, right? Like passwords should be good, right? But if you're busy and stressed out, are they
Yeah.
doing that?
Yeah. Yeah, we
I don't
think
know.
technology can kind of automate or kind of like manage some of the bad feelings, right? Or take it off our plate. We're stressed, we're anxious about
Yeah.
this. Well, we're just kind of like not have to follow good practices because, we're moving again and now I've got to find another job or whatever. It's
Yeah.
just like
Yeah. Yeah. Or like closing that account, opening that account, right? You're closing it
yes.
and you're like, "Oh my god, I'll just make it password for now and I'll fix
Yeah.
it later," right?
Later.
So like that's I think what often happens is you're like, "I just need to open this account. I don't have a password
Right.
manager," right?
Yeah.
Like everybody should get a password manager. That's my shout out. But like I don't have a password manager, but I need to open it right now because this person
Yeah.
is looking at me telling me I need to open it. So I'll just make it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and I'll come back later
Yeah.
and fix it. But you never come back later and fix it.
Yeah.
Right. So,
Yeah. Well, I
yeah.
loved your emphasis on kind of, a trusted network in a way kind of did provide us some level of a buffer, like a defense
Mhm.
really to this. And then I think kind of with the loneliness epidemic, some of us have thought, maybe technology, maybe having connections or having Google or something, it kind of like replaces my trusted network.
Mhm.
And then that
Mhm.
just makes me more vulnerable because I'm planning a road trip. And this morning I've asked folks like kind of in my area, have they been or anything like that. And that's how I used to get really good like travel advice. Well, no
Yeah.
one, I didn't, I don't run into folks. It's not that like kind of trusted network as before. So I'm online and it's just what's kind of like promoted, but tech really doesn't
Yeah.
know me. They don't know what I'm really interested in. I mean, it's like the predictive analysis only goes so far, and then it's whatever's got the money behind it as far as what they're
Yeah.
showing
Yeah.
me. But
Sponsored. Yeah. Whatever
yeah,
sponsored. Yeah.
yeah. But I think too many people think because we have technology, we don't need a trusted network of people we know that we've known for a long time that know us, and we just neglect it, and it becomes the epidemic of loneliness, which makes us so vulnerable in this area.
Yeah, I really do like 2 pieces of advice I feel like I say over and over and over again. The first is any unsolicited communication out of the blue needs to be
Mhm.
checked. Even if it's your mom, right? You check it.
Yeah.
You check it. You check it. And then number 2, use that trusted network all the time, right? Even if you
Mm.
think, okay, this seems legit, like ask someone anyway, right?
Yeah.
Ask someone anyway because so many times I talk to a victim and they say, I wish I would have asked my sister. I wish I would have asked
Mm.
my friend, my mom, my dad, right? Like I wish I
Mm.
would have just asked because that's also a technique these bad guys use, right? Don't tell anybody. Don't tell anybody you're talking to me. Don't tell anybody
Mm.
this has happened. Don't tell, right? Because they're isolating you. They don't want you to do your research. They don't want
Mm.
you to ask anybody for their opinion because they want to control your
Mhm.
emotions. They want to manipulate you. And they know that a person on the outside is going to be like, wait a minute, right? This
Right.
doesn't feel right because they're not being manipulated. And so it's so even just get in the habit of just being like, what do you think of this? I think it's real. Do you think it's real? Okay, cool. Let's move on. Right. Just a 3-second check. It can really save you.
Yeah. They're not that input. They're not caught up in this emotional wave, the highs and
Exactly.
lows of
Exactly.
all that.
Yeah.
So how do you think technology has kind of reshaped the way we approach security and privacy while online? Your cyber hygiene recommendations are awesome. That's so
Yeah.
actionable.
Yeah. Fix your
But
passwords. Yeah. Use MFA. Right.
yeah.
Um, Yeah, I mean, and we kind of touched on it, right? We can reach out and touch anyone, talk to
Mhm.
anybody. We can learn about anything and everything. But like we're still like cavemen, right? Like we're still humans. I don't think our brains have caught up. There's
Yeah.
some great cybersecurity awareness and prevention videos out there that highlight how free we are with sharing
Mhm.
information online, right? And how immensely different we behave in real world
Yeah.
interactions, right? We aren't walking down the street screaming what we did yesterday or
Yeah.
grabbing strangers and be like, look at pictures of my family, right? Look at my kids. We're not
Mhm.
doing that. It would be crazy to do that in real life, to give everyone a constant update, right? Like, hey, I'm
Yeah.
doing this right now. Hey, I'm going here tomorrow. Here's a picture, right? But we do that online. And part of that is that feedback, right? We get feedback when we do it online. We get the
Mhm.
attention, we get
Mhm.
that dopamine hit and it
Mhm.
feels good. And so then we do it more and more and more. But what we're doing is we're just like giving the bad guys all of this information on us, right? We're giving the
Yeah.
world all this information. If you walked down the street and a guy just came up to you and said, I'm from your bank. Here's my business card. Your account has been compromised. Quick, move your money. You'd be like, get away from me, right? Like you would never do that.
Yeah.
But online, right, we can see like a little bit of a certification or proof that maybe this person is who they say they are and we're moving our money. And it's not because we're dumb. It's not because we don't know scams are out there. It's like the fast pace and the stress, right? And that again, this I want to believe what I see, right? And
Mhm.
there's just this disconnect between real world where we question things more
Mhm.
and online and the internet where we're just not questioning as much as we should. We're not again asking our trusted network, "Hey, what do
Mhm.
you think?" right? So I think it's done such a technology has done a great job in helping us with security and privacy. And yet, we as humans are doing things that are not keeping us secure and not maintaining our privacy. We got to slow down. We haven't cracked it. Again, Hannah, if you crack it, just whisper it to me, and then we will be billionaires and we'll
There you
figure it
go.
out. Yeah,
We have a new project.
I know. We've got a lot of projects so far. We got a lot of projects.
Yeah, and it's such a great description with the man from the bank on the
Yeah.
street. Because I'm
Move your
thinking,
money. Yeah.
yeah, I would like whip out the mace,
Yeah, right? Like, "Get away from me, crazy person." But again, we get an email and, like,
Oh,
"This is your bank,"
yeah,
right?
there's a
You're like, "Oh!"
logo. I
You're like,
know.
"Holy crap, like, I gotta move my money," right? And
Yeah,
why, right? And again, it's not because 'cause we're dumb. We're not
yeah,
dumb. If you have been affected by that, you're not dumb. It's just, like, our
yeah,
brains can't figure that out yet. So,
yeah. Yeah, the
moving so
tech has
fast.
really just kind of outpaced us. And I know you mentioned kind of like, we're like cavemen in terms of this,
Yeah.
like, and technology's going up here and we're just kind of our
Yeah, faster and
yeah,
faster. Yeah. Yeah, just look at the last 100 years, how different our lives are now than they were 100 years ago. I
yeah,
mean, mind-blowing, right? We have not had enough time for it to adjust. And
yeah.
it's just going faster and faster, right? Holograms are going to be scamming
I
us in a
know.
couple years. So,
That's true.
it's
Yeah,
hard to catch our breath. Yeah.
yeah. So how do you think, so I know and how, you talked about how it's impacted with the loneliness epidemic and
Mhm.
then how bad actors can really play on our emotions and how that kind of impacts our brains. But how do you think technology, just kind of in general, is impacting how we connect with each other as humans?
Yeah. And so I don't wanna, like, beat a dead horse, but I
Mhm.
don't wanna be a negative Nancy either, because think of
Yeah.
someone who's housebound, right? Maybe you're
Yeah.
just have an illness or you're, some sort of,
Yeah.
you can't leave the house. How wonderful is it that you could
Mhm.
still be connected, right?
Mhm.
Connected to society. You could still take classes, you could still
Mhm.
grow and improve, right? That's amazing. That's
Mhm.
so amazing. Um, but again, you almost need a network first to
Yeah.
connect with in order to do that, right? In order to make
Yeah.
sure you're doing it properly. And then I think the danger is looping back to that loneliness epidemic when you truly have no one in your life. I
Mhm.
spoke with a woman. She was one of the very first women I ever spoke to when I first started this job. And she was in her 80s and she was housebound. She had a degenerative eye disease, so she couldn't leave. And she was delightful. She was just the sweetest, like 85-year-old woman. I loved her. I could talk to her all day. But she was like, I'm in this house all by myself all day.
Mhm.
My family will call once a month, but they don't visit me. They're kind of
Mhm.
3 hours away. And I love people and I love interacting. And
Mm.
so when someone calls me, I know that it's a scam, but I'm
Yeah.
so lonely. I'm going to talk to them. And if
Mhm.
it costs me $100, if it costs me this, it's worth it because I'm getting something out of it. I'm getting interaction out of it. And that like floored me, right? Like this woman
Yeah.
knew she was talking to criminals and bad guys or whatever. And she was talking to like 10 or 11 at the same time.
Yeah.
And it was, I mean, that's devastating, right? And also
Yeah.
the danger is, yes, she knew some were scammers, but she had kind of gotten sucked into others and thought that
Mhm.
they were actually legitimate. And
Yeah.
so was losing money to the people that
Mhm.
she thought were legitimate that were still criminals, right?
Mhm.
So again, like, this is such a complicated issue and yet
Mhm.
simple, right? Like, we all
Yeah.
just need that connection, and though
Yeah.
technology can assist it, I think it's dangerous when you don't already have that established legitimate connection first in
Yeah.
person. It's when it starts on technology, you better
Mhm.
make sure that that person is who they say they are and meet them in person within 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And if you cannot do that, you cannot have a relationship, whether that's friendship, mentorship,
Yeah.
love, right? You just can't have it. It's because
Yeah.
there's just too much possibility that it's fake.
Yeah, no, that's a great description. I love kind of, it's truly a double-edged sword because on one hand, a housebound individual being able to connect with legitimate, people within a trusted network through technology would be amazing.
Yeah.
That could totally change her life. I'm sure talking to you, Allie, was the highlight of her experience throughout
I
all
know.
that.
I
You
hope
know,
so. Yeah.
yeah, but it also just kind of not having that can just it's a huge vulnerability. And I think
Yeah.
that's something I'm so glad you brought it up because I feel like in the industry in technology, no one discusses kind of what in our physical world increases our vulnerability to this. So whether that's the fact that, you know, we move around a lot and we're not living where we went to high school or near our family, or if it's kind of generational trends, people don't join community organizations, they're not going to see people in person. um I would just moving around a lot with the military. I When we move somewhere, I would like set little goals for like, I've got to make new friends. And I was like, I never
Yeah.
waited for people to ask me out to lunch because if I did, it just wouldn't happen. Right. So like
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was just take the initiative and it's like new place, new town, I'll invite four
Yeah.
people. We just, you go through it. And it was because, me lonely, middle of nowhere off some army base is just, I mean, that's just a miserable experience. And that type of like society vulnerability that we have with folks not being connected, not seeing people in person, and we don't even like prioritize it. And I think we don't
Yeah.
think about it as part of our kind of security too. Not having connections where you're at or in a trusted network is part of your kind of security on a couple fronts, whether it's cyber or even just kind of your life. But we just like, oh, we'll get to that later. That's personal life
Yeah.
stuff. We're busy with work. It doesn't
Exactly.
matter.
Exactly. That's a responsibility, but it's not, my profession or
Yeah.
whatever, right? Yeah. And I think you hit on such an important concept, and it's that balance, right? That we all hear or that we're all attaining to. Like, yes, technology, great, facilitate, make it better, make it
Yeah.
easier, but we also still need that in-person
Hmm.
tribe, right? We need
Hmm.
both. Both
Hmm.
is what is going to be amazing. One or the
Yeah.
other, right? You also can't live in the woods with no technology and like two people, right? That's
Right.
also
Yeah.
crazy town, right? So like it's that balance, but it's so hard to find it because it's so
Hmm.
easy to sway to
Yeah.
one extreme or the other. And yeah, I think you just said that beautifully. So
So what career advice do you have for kind of the next generation of professionals interested in a career in cyber?
yeah, we talked about this a little before, but there are so many ways to enter this space, right? You
Mhm.
don't necessarily have to be the super techie. If you are, great. Like we need you, right? Yay, be it, do it. But you can still be in the space if you aren't. And there are so many courses out there,
Oh, yeah.
organizations to be a part of, mentors that are just
Mhm.
willing to give you great advice. So like
Mhm.
jump in and start learning and get that network. Don't be me, be better than me. And there are just so many people though also in the space that want to help, right? That want
Yeah.
to help you and teach you or get you connected, right? Even if it's just, hey, I know a person, go here. You have to be tactful about it, right? Again,
Mhm.
like can't be all gimme, 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 right? So practice your networking thing. But really, I think it's just a matter of getting those relationships, going to those events, those conventions, webinars, things like that, learning as much as you can yourself, but then asking for that help through those connections. So that was the biggest thing that helped me and hopefully will help everybody else.
Yeah. So are there any resources that you found kind of particularly useful in your career journey?
Yeah, so I'm trying to think of there's kind of like two prongs, I guess we'll
Mhm.
go. So again, hiring our heroes, sorry, that was huge for me as we're going like the military to civilian
Mhm.
career. So mention them. Really, if you don't know who they are, give them a Google, and they can help you do that transition. And Hire Heroes USA is also a great one. They help me with again my resume, things like that. So if you're a military community, kind of making that transition, or you're just a military spouse, not just a military spouse. I'm a military spouse. We're not just anything if you are a military spouse. Those are two resources for you as well. As far as I'll stick with if you're in the victim service
Mhm.
space with cyber, because that's what I can speak to
Mhm.
best. Um, the place I started, and this is an old book, but I think it's still like an oldie but a goodie. Transformational security awareness by Perry Carpenter, and that's the phrase that's where I got the phrase. Just because you're aware doesn't mean you care, right? And I think that it goes into how to like really talk to humans and really get at effective ways to change their behavior. You can't sit a human down for 2 hours and talk at their face about passwords and MFA and privacy and security. They're going to zone you out, right? You got to get
Mhm.
like quick funny 2 minutes and be like, "Hey," right? And then move on. That's how humans work. And so that book really opened my eyes to, "Oh, this doesn't have to be terrible," right? Again, because I was doing the cybersecurity awareness challenge, which was like an hour and a half long, and you're just like, "Oh my god, I just want to get through it," right? So cybersecurity doesn't have to be that way. It can be fun. It can be um, engaging and intriguing. And that book really kind of opened my eyes. Um, if you are going to work with victims of severe cybercrime, again, romance fraud or crypto investment fraud, I would really
Mhm.
consider getting trauma training. There's a billion places you can get trauma informed training.
Mhm.
But basically, everyone in my organization goes through trauma informed training. And it's
Mhm.
this approach that teaches people about the impact of trauma. And cybercrime is a trauma. And it teaches you how to kind of recognize it and then respond with sensitivity and awareness, right? And that's so important when you're talking to victims of a crime. And then kind of a off the wall, not off the wall book, but kind of something that I think probably people wouldn't associate with maybe cybercrime or cyber was Malcolm Gladwell's book Talking to Strangers, and he kind of brings up the truth bias and how, when we talk to people, we actually kind of want them to be who they say they are.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Ah, that makes a lot of sense," right? And so that kind of got me into thinking about the biases and how wrong we can be,
Mhm.
about people and how we can um, perceive people the wrong way. And it's
Mhm.
just a really interesting book to get you thinking about the human brain. Brene Brown, oh my gosh, love Brene Brown. She does a great thing on empathy versus sympathy. There's like if you
Mhm.
just go to YouTube and put in Brene Brown empathy versus sympathy, it's just this cute little 2-minute video that's a part of one of her talks, and it's life changing. It was life changing for me. So there is a difference between empathy and sympathy. And spoiler alert, you want to be empathetic, not sympathetic to victims of crime. And then last, I know I've got like all these resources, but
These
last
are
one,
great.
last one. If you are interested in romance fraud in particular, I would start with Keanu Reeves is Not in Love with You, and that's by Becky Holmes. Um, she does a really great job at being humorous, but also
Mhm.
respectful and breaking down that crime in all its simple but complex parts, right? And
Mhm.
bringing the emotion in. And like you'll laugh through it, but you'll also learn through it. And I read it after doing this work and I was just like spot on. She's spot on with everything she says here. And it felt like a fun read, right? So again, like
Yeah.
cybersecurity, cyber awareness, it doesn't have to be this drag. It can be fun and interesting and engaging. And that's a great example. Keanu Reeves is not in love with you. So
Those are great, great books. I read the Gladwell one, and I remember when I like read the back cover, I was like, oh, truth bias. I don't have a problem with that.
yeah, like not me. Overconfidence bias right there. Yeah.
Right there, which just proves
Yep.
the point. I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
But I never
I
thought about it. Like I just didn't, and it's
yeah.
so true. Kind of as
Yeah.
through all the scenarios you've described, just one thing that keeps standing out to me is just kind of not in a negative, not that this is negative, but a realization that as humans, we do have certain vulnerabilities related to emotions, and that is not, we are not robots. This is not, we are not
No.
like little computer programs that are just going to fire, the exact same thing. And
Yeah.
in a world that is so techy, I think we forget that and
Yeah.
then turn it around and we don't know how to talk to strangers or,
Yeah. 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 No, or we don't know how to like protect ourselves, right? And like
Yeah.
at the end of the day, we want to love, we want
Hmm.
to be loved, we want to be
Hmm.
understood, right? We want to
Hmm.
connect. It's so
Hmm.
simple, right? Again,
Yeah.
strip away all the crap, right? Strip away
Right.
all of it. That's it. That's what we want. And life gets complicated and yet it's still so basic. And cyber
Mhm.
criminals know it, right? They're like, we got this. They can work
Yeah.
around our technology so easily.
Mhm.
And like, I have one example, and I'm so sorry. It's related, but not related. I don't know. Stick with me, Hannah. I'm going to take you on a journey real quick. But so there's the new bill that is present in the Senate right now, and it's the Romance Scam Prevention Act. And good bill, right? It basically says dating websites have to notify you if they find out that you're talking to
Mhm.
a criminal, right? Great. I love that. That is
Mhm.
perfect. I think that is a great responsibility that dating websites should do. And I do think it is going to help a lot of people. However, we've already seen criminals work around that. So we spoke with a woman 2 weeks ago and she said, I met this guy online, talked to him for a couple weeks, felt really great. I really liked him. And then all of a sudden he stopped talking to me. And I was like, what's going on? Right. I'm messaging him. And finally, a few weeks later, he says, well, I got a notification that you were a scammer. So you need to prove to me that you're not a scammer. And she was like, oh my gosh, I'm not a scammer. Here's my driver's license. Here's all of my information. Here's my passport, right? I'm not a scammer. And he was like, okay, all right, good. Yeah, you've proven to me that you're not a scammer. So thank you for that. And then proceeded to steal her money over the course
Mhm.
of the next few months, right? So that is a non-tech solution that they
Yeah.
just figured out to work around the tech solution that we had
Oh.
created, right? And so again, they're so good at knowing just the human way
Mhm.
to crack in to our brains and our hearts. And I think that is what we need to remember, right? All this technology, they can just sidestep it with a few words and a little bit of thought for very cheap, right? Very
Yeah.
cheap.
Yeah. That's a great story. So you've shared so many great insights here. Kind of.
Hopefully something's good in there. I don't know.
Yes, no, it really makes it real, kind of makes it come off the screen. This isn't just stuff that happens to other people. I know even myself, I'm like, oh gosh, this did happen to me. I never, when
Yeah.
we talked about doing this, I never was like, oh, I've been a victim of this. I didn't even think about that. And it's just
Yeah.
like kind of the universal potential for this to impact pretty much anyone with a
Yeah.
internet connection, and just kind of great explanations about how it occurs, why it's effective, and kind of what we can do. So to put you on the spot here at the end, do you have any final words of advice for the audience?
Yeah. So and again, you kind of gave me the softball, but we all have our cybercrime kryptonite. We all have our
Hmm.
scam kryptonite, right? So yeah, not every cybercrime is going to hit you, is going to resonate with you,
Yeah.
right? But if you're stressed, if
Mhm.
you're lonely,
Mhm.
even if you're just looking to start dating, right? Dip your
Yeah.
toe in the water, or just you're on the internet, right?
Yeah.
There is a scam or a cybercrime that can affect you. So be aware of that, right? Don't
Mhm.
be too overconfident. And if you're
Mhm.
saying that would never happen to me, oh, you're already there, right? So do some
Yeah.
self-awareness there. But really, and to bring this full circle, general plea to the public, take care of each other, be
Mhm.
good to each other, like look out for your loved ones. I hear so often, well, I lost my husband after 30 years of
Mhm.
marriage, right? He passed away. And after a few years, my friend said, oh, date online. Or my daughter said, go date online. But no one helped mom or dad date online, right? No one sat there and said, hey, let's talk about how to date safely online.
Mhm.
This is what you need to be afraid of. Or, here are the things to be cautious of. So, really, and that's a specific example, but there are others out there, right? Like, I know it's boring sometimes and can be a drag, but this is an economic crisis, right? Our
Yeah.
money is pouring out of America and going to transnational organized crime rings.
Yeah.
So let's stop that and let's help each other and be there for each other. Because I really do think our family, our friends, our trusted network
Mhm.
is the first line of defense besides passwords. Change your passwords. Besides that, but yeah, be good to each other. Take care of each other. As to end it on that very namaste note, I guess.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Allie, for sharing your insights and experiences. Your contributions have impacted so many. So we really
Oh,
appreciate you coming on.
thank you so much for having me. It was a blast. We got to get back with me on all those ideas. Seriously. We gotta start those.
And to our listeners, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Tipping Spears with Hannah Becker. We hope this conversation has sparked new ideas and challenged the way you think. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, and we'll catch you next time with another exciting guest.